Chapter 46. Claiming the tombs. Less than third-person POV greater than. While the others settled into their cells, Rick, Daryl, and Itachi stayed in the waiting area of cell block C with the three prisoners. Oscar leaned forward, resting his arms on the table. There's 4 blocks total. Closest one is D, then B, and last is A. Rick nodded slightly. Where's the armory? Infirmary. Axel scratched at his beard. Both near block B. The fastest way is to go through the tombs to get there. Rick thought it over. So we've got access to the cafeteria, and we can get the showers, and the boiler room. Oscar shook his head. Wouldn't get your hopes up about hot water anytime soon. It's been sitting dead for too long. We'd have to stabilize the pressure and find fuel oil tanks first, even to have a chance of it working. Itachi glanced toward Oscar, then shifted the question. What's near block D? Big Tiny spoke up. Nothing much. A guard office and a small library. Itachi's interest was piqued. What kind of books are there? Big Tiny shifted in his chair. Mostly old literature, Shakespeare, Mark Twain, some history, a few beat-up westerns, and, a whole shelf of Bibles, nothing fancy. Itachi thought for a second. What kind of history? Big Tiny blinked at him, a little surprised by the question. Some US history, mostly. Old wars, presidents, and a couple of medieval history books. Daryl finally pushed off the wall, shaking his head. Are we seriously sitting here talking about books right now? His voice was edged with disbelief. Itachi looked his way. A book's priceless now. Without teachers, it's all we've got left to learn from. Rick looked at Itachi. You think we should start collecting them from now on? Itachi gave a small nod. Yes. Every single one. If they're not useful, at the very least they'll give people something for entertainment. Big Tiny shifted. He's right, books kept me sane in here. Helps you relax, lets you see the world without ever leaving the room. Oscar cracked a small smile, glancing at him. That's how he got the nickname. Only one who ever stepped foot in that library was Tiny here. Rick straightened, letting the moment settle before moving on. All right. Books are worth keeping, but first we have to secure the facilities we have access to and then we'll make our way towards Block D. Daryl nodded. But we can't use guns in the tombs if those gates are open to other sections, we're screwed. Rick looked at Daryl, then at Itachi. You wanna wait for Shane and Glenn, or we do it now? Itachi stayed quiet for a moment before answering. The three of us can check the showers and boiler room. If we can lock it down, good. If things go bad, fewer people make it easier to retreat. Rick looked between them. All right. I'll inform the others. In the meantime, get ready. His eyes shifted towards the inmates. You three stay in the cafeteria until we come back. The inmates gave a simple nod, no objections. Rick turned away, heading back toward the others to lay out the plan, while Itachi and Daryl slipped off to gather their gear. As Rick stepped out of the cell block, Itachi and Daryl were already waiting. Daryl with his crossbow in hand, and Itachi in his full Anbu gear. When they got close to the entrance to the tombs, Rick looked towards Itachi. I left my keys with T-Dog. So it's up to you to try and lock the doors. We'll be covering your back, and if the keys don't work, we retreat immediately and try to locate a set that does. Itachi pulled a kunai from his pouch. Understood. He crouched low at the lock, easing it open slowly to avoid making any noise. Itachi eased the door open inch by inch. He scanned the gap for any walkers. When he spotted none, he opened the door wider, motioning for the others to follow him. Once they were inside, he locked the doors quietly behind them. They began moving down the narrow hallway, Itachi in the lead while Daryl followed closely with his crossbow raised. Rick covered the rear, making sure nothing crept up from behind. As they moved deeper into the tombs, the sound of growling echoed ahead. 3 walkers staggered out of the dark. Itachi started walking forward slowly. When the walkers started turning towards him, he suddenly burst into motion. The first went down in an instant, his blade driving clean through its temple. The second lunged, arms snapping out, but Itachi yanked the kunai free, dropped low to avoid the grab, and drove the blade up through its jaw. Without stopping, he ripped it out and sent it flying through the air. The kunai struck deep into the skull of the third walker, dropping it on the spot. More growls echoed, but this time from both sides of the corridor. 4 walkers shuffled out of the dark, cutting them off front and back. Itachi shifted forward, but Daryl raised a hand, stopping him. Daryl raised his crossbow and fired. The string snapped, and the bolt buried itself deep through a walker's eye socket, dropping the thing instantly to the floor. Before the second one even reached him, Daryl slung the crossbow down, pulled the hunting knife from his belt, and met it head-on. He grabbed the walker by the collar and drove the blade up through its head in one savage motion. Behind them, two more pushed closer. Rick stepped forward, machete drawn as he split one's head down the middle, kicking it off the blade before it could drag him down. The second lunged, teeth snapping, but Rick shoved it hard against the wall, driving the blade through its face. From there, the killing didn't stop. They pushed deeper into the tombs, the narrow halls twisting on and on. Walkers came at them in twos, sometimes threes. Itachi moved in first, cutting them down one after another. Daryl stayed a step behind, firing a bolt or driving his knife home whenever more stumbled out of the corridors. Rick lagged at first, forcing himself to push harder to keep up with the two. But the more they fought, the more in sync he became. By the time they passed the showers and the boiler room, the three of them were moving as a single unit. When they reached the end of the hall, a metal door stood cracked open. Itachi stepped forward immediately, crouching at the frame. He slid the key into the lock and turned it until the mechanism clicked shut, while Daryl and Rick stood close behind, covering his back. Relief crossed Rick's face for just a moment before he gave a small nod, motioning for them to move on. Chapter 47. Securing Block D. Less than third-person POV greater than. With the first door secured, the three pressed on, step by step through the narrow halls. When they reached the next junction, a rusted door hung slightly ajar. Itachi raised a hand, and the others stopped. He eased it shut, slid a key into the lock, and turned it until it clicked. He nodded once, and together they moved on to the next door. Not far ahead, a prison guard walker staggered out of the hall, its uniform hanging in tatters. Itachi stepped forward, driving his blade clean through the head before it could even react. As the body crumpled, he crouched beside it and searched for anything useful. He found a ring of keys in its pocket and slipped them into his pouch while Rick and Daryl kept watch down the corridor. Door by door, they pressed on, moving through each junction with the same pattern. Itachi checked the handles, locking what was unlocked while Rick and Daryl kept the path covered. Lock after lock, kill after kill, the three pushed deeper and deeper, sealing every corridor until only the way forward remained. They reached the double doors marked for Block D, the paint on the wall still spelling it out in faded black letters. Itachi stepped forward, keys in hand, moving to lock it for now. But as he neared, a low groan carried through from behind the doors, another joined it, then another, and another. More kept adding in, one after the other, until the sound became a chorus. As the doors started to open, Itachi rushed in, throwing his shoulder against them to hold them shut. Daryl was there a moment later, Rick right behind him, all of them straining to force the doors closed. The effort lasted only seconds before the pressure grew too much, driving them back and leaving them to face the doors as they opened fully. A tide of bodies spilled out, guards and inmates alike. 15, maybe more, crammed into the corridor at once. Rick and Daryl froze as the horde funneled towards them. Pulling a trigger wasn't an option. If the tombs connected to Block D are open, the shots would drag every walker from there straight into the fight. And if any walkers are still alive behind them in the tombs, they could be cut off and surrounded in an instant. Rick's voice cracked through the panic. We have to get out, now. Rick and Daryl started to fall back, but Itachi stepped forward instead, sword in one hand, kunai in the other. The first walker lunged toward him, but his blade met its head first, splitting it clean through the forehead. Before the body could fall, he shoved it forward with a hard kick, knocking it back into the horde and staggering the ones behind it. He didn't back away. He dove straight in. The sword cut across the head of the next walker in line. As it dropped, he turned his wrist and slashed the one beside it, the blade carving through the side of its head in the same motion. Another stumbled close on his right. His kunai shot forward, stabbing straight through its eye. He ripped it free, twisting his body, and brought the sword down in a vertical chop that split the skull of the one pressing from the left. From there, his speed only grew. The more the hall filled with bodies, the faster he dismantled them. Walkers fell in waves, each step forward leaving another corpse at his feet. Strikes blurred together, too fast to follow, and from behind, Rick and Daryl could only watch in stunned silence. What they saw was a predator finally set loose. As the last walker dropped, Itachi stood among the piles of bodies, blood dripping from his sword and kunai. He wiped them clean with a flick, slid both back into their sheaths, and without a word stepped through the doors into Block D. Behind him, Rick and Daryl remained rooted in place, stunned by what they'd just witnessed, until instinct finally forced them forward. They made their way through Block D in silence, moving cell by cell and corridor by corridor. Every door was checked, every lock tested, and anything that could be sealed was shut tight. The halls leading deeper into the tombs, toward Block B and the other sections, were closed off one by one until only a single route remained back to Block C. By the time they finished, D stood cleared and contained, and every path but their own was cut off. Daryl looked over at Itachi, still stunned. Hell, you human at all. Or just some kind of vampire walkin' round with us. He muttered, only half joking, but not able to shake the thought. Rick slid down against the wall until he was sitting on the floor, eyes fixed on the boy in front of him. I was wondering the same, he said quietly. You already seemed more like some superhuman before, but this is insane. Itachi glanced his way, calm as ever. You've seen me fight before. Rick shook his head. Not like that. Before, the dead weren't all on you. Maybe a couple at a time, maybe scattered. But this, he gestured weakly at the heap of bodies in the hall. This was all of them, and they never touched you once. Daryl grumbled under his breath. Got my ass beat for nothing. Itachi only smirked at that, which pissed Daryl off enough to make him ready to go at him again, but Rick cut in before it could spark. Save yourself the trouble, Rick said, a half-grin tugging at his mouth. That's one fight you'd lose twice. And we need to get back to the others. Herschel should be here by now, and the tombs still need sweeping. This time we do it in groups, make sure every walker's down and every door is locked. We'll see about that, Daryl muttered, pushing off the wall but letting it drop. Itachi smirked faintly and turned toward the hall ahead. They made their way back towards Block C through the tombs, still on guard but finding no walkers and hearing nothing. When they reached the doors, T-Dog opened them right away. Daryl shot him a look. Looks like somebody didn't drop the damn key this time. T-Dog's expression soured, shame flickering across his face. Rick stepped in before it lingered. Don't take it to heart, he's just blowing off steam. T-Dog gave a short nod and let it go, saying nothing more. As the three stepped inside, people began gathering around. Rick spotted Herschel with his family, safe and intact, and gave a quick nod in greeting. Herschel returned it, nothing more needed. Amy was among the first to approach Itachi. So, how'd it go? She asked, in a curious voice. Itachi smiled at her. Better than expected. We managed to clear the tombs in Block D. Amy smiled back. Well, all that matters is that you got back safe. Before Itachi could answer, Rick's voice carried over the block, cutting through the warm moment. Alright, listen up, he called out. We're splitting into groups of 3 and sweeping the tombs again. Every corridor, every door, anything we might have missed, we find it this time. Lori's voice cut in. You just got back, Rick. Do you really have to run straight out there again? Rick didn't look at her. If we missed even one entry point, the tombs could be crawling with walkers from other sections by tomorrow. We need to make sure it's secure while they're still relatively empty. There were no objections. One by one, people started gathering what they needed, checking weapons and gear as they prepared to head into the tombs.